The gun barrel pressed cold against her temple as the helicopter lurched sideways over the endless Pacific. At 2,000 feet above nothing but dark water, everyone froze, everyone except Jackson Sullivan, whose hands never left the controls even as his world shattered into chaos. What happened next in that spinning aircraft would transform two strangers' lives forever, binding them through courage, desperation, and a connection neither one saw coming. Welcome to a story that proves heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they're just exhausted single fathers trying to keep their promises while keeping everyone alive. Now, let's begin where it all started. With a pilot who just wanted to finish one last flight, and a billionaire who thought money could protect her from anything. The story begins on a fog-covered helipad in Seattle at 6:47 a.m., when everything changed. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The Seattle helipad at dawn was a study in gray sky, gray concrete, gray exhaustion that clung to every surface like the morning fog rolling in from Puget Sound. Jackson Sullivan stood beside his helicopter, a 10-year-old Airbus H-125 that had seen better days but still flew like a dream when he could keep her maintained. His thermos of truck stop coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but he drank it anyway, staring at his phone screen for the 100th time that morning. The photo showed Summer, his 9-year-old daughter, wearing her soccer uniform with the number 7 emblazoned across the back. Her gap-toothed smile could have powered the entire city. The text message beneath it, sent at 11 last night, was simple but devastating in its hope. Dad, Coach says if I score 3 goals this season, I might make the travel team. Tomorrow's game is my big chance. You'll be there, right? You promised. He had promised. 2 weeks ago, when this charter job came through, he'd promised her he'd make it back in time for the Saturday morning game. The client was paying triple his normal rate for a same-day round trip to Vancouver Island and back. Money he desperately needed. Money that meant he could finally fix the leak in their apartment ceiling, maybe even buy Summer those new cleats she needed, instead of the ones held together with duct tape and hope. But that was before the client changed the departure time 3 times, before weather delays, before every small thing that could go wrong did go wrong. Now it was 6:47 a.m., and Summer's game started at 10. The math was simple and cruel. Even if everything went perfectly, he'd be cutting it impossibly close. Mr. Sullivan? A voice cut through his thoughts. Sharp, professional, the kind of voice used to being obeyed immediately. He turned to see a woman approaching across the helipad, flanked by 2 security personnel who looked like they benched small cars for fun. She was probably in her late 30s, wearing a charcoal business suit that cost more than his helicopter's last maintenance check. Her dark hair was pulled back in a way that looked effortless but probably took a team of stylists to achieve. Everything about her screamed wealth, power, and the absolute certainty that the world would bend to accommodate her schedule. Ariana Steele. He recognized her from the news. CEO of Steele Biotechnologies. The woman who'd revolutionized cancer treatment and made herself a billionaire before 40. Forbes called her a visionary. The business press called her ruthless. His daughter would probably call her the fancy helicopter lady and ask a million questions about what it was like to be rich. That's me, Jackson said, setting down his coffee and extending a hand that bore the calluses of someone who worked with their hands for a living. Ready when you are, Miss Steele. She shook his hand briefly, her grip firm and businesslike. We have a problem. I need to make a stop in Victoria before we head to the research facility on Vancouver Island. My lawyers need documents signed in person. It'll add 90 minutes to the trip. 90 minutes. The words hit him like a physical blow. 90 minutes meant he'd definitely miss Summer's game, meant breaking his promise. Again, she'd understand. She always did. But that somehow made it worse. 9-year-olds shouldn't have to be that understanding. Miss Steele, I have a commitment this afternoon that's pretty important. The original flight plan was tight, but doable. Adding 90 minutes means I won't make it back in time. Her expression didn't change. I'm paying you $5,000 for today's charter, Mr. Sullivan, I'm happy to make it $7,000 if the schedule change is a problem. $7,000. That was 2 months of keeping the lights on. That was fixing the ceiling and buying the cleats. And maybe, finally, starting that college fund he'd been promising himself he'd begin. But it was also missing Summer's game. Missing her chance to make the travel team. Missing another moment in her life because he was too busy trying to keep them afloat. Make it 8, he heard himself say, and we have a deal. Something flickered across Ariana Steele's face. Surprise, maybe, or respect. People probably didn't negotiate with her often. Done. 8,000. But we leave now. Give me 5 minutes for pre-flight. He performed his checks with the methodical precision that years of flying had ingrained in him. Oil levels, fuel, control surfaces, emergency equipment. Everything had to be perfect. His instructor's voice echoed in his memory. The helicopter doesn't care if you're tired or distracted or worried about your family. It only cares if you did the checklist. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Cho, his neighbor who watched Summer when his schedule ran long, which was increasingly often these days. Summer's up and eating breakfast, very excited about the game. Keeps asking when you'll be home. He typed back quickly. Working on it. Tell her I love her, and she's going to be amazing. What he didn't type. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I'm failing at this single dad thing. Tell her she deserves better than a father who keeps choosing money over moments. Mr. Sullivan. Ariana Steele was standing by the helicopter, her 2 security guards loading expensive luggage into the cargo area. Are we ready? Yes, ma'am. Just finishing up. He pocketed his phone and put on his professional face. I'll need you and your security team to buckle in. Weather's looking good for the crossing, but we might hit some chop over the Strait of Juan de Fuca. The ride should smooth out once we're over the island. She nodded and climbed into the cabin with practiced ease. The security guards followed, big men trying to fold themselves into seats designed for average-sized humans. Jackson noticed one of them kept his hand near his jacket in a way that suggested a concealed weapon. Former military or law enforcement, probably. The kind of people who got hired when you had enough money to be a target. As he settled into the pilot's seat and began his startup sequence, Jackson allowed himself one last look at his phone. The photo of Summer in her soccer uniform, that smile that made every sacrifice worth it, even when it didn't feel like it. I'll make the next one, baby girl, he whispered. I promise. The turbine spooled up with a whine that built to a roar. Through his headset, he heard the tower clear him for departure. The collective came up smooth in his hand, and the H-125 lifted off the pad with the grace of a bird that weighed 2 tons and cost more to operate per hour than most people made in a week. As Seattle fell away beneath them, the city still wrapped in morning fog, Jackson forced himself to focus on the flight, the job, the $8,000 that would keep them going for another 2 months. He pushed thoughts of Summer's game, of broken promises, of the growing distance between the father he wanted to be and the father he was, into a mental compartment labeled "Deal with Later." The Pacific Northwest spread out before him, all forested islands and gray-blue water. Beautiful and indifferent, the helicopter didn't care about his struggles. The ocean didn't care about his promises. They just existed, following physical laws that were simpler and more honest than human ones. In the cabin behind him, Ariana Steele was already on her phone, that rapid-fire voice, discussing stock prices and FDA approvals, and things that existed in a world so far removed from his that they might as well have been speaking different languages. 2 different people, 2 different worlds, thrown together for a few hours by the simple transaction of money for services. Neither of them could have imagined that within the hour, both their worlds would collide in a way that would change everything. Neither of them saw it coming, but then again, no one ever does. They were 37 minutes into the flight when everything went wrong. Jackson had just established level flight at 2,000 feet, following the coastline north toward the Canadian border. The weather was cooperating, visibility good, winds manageable. He'd been doing mental calculations about timing, wondering if there was any way to shave minutes off the flight plan. Maybe if the document signing went faster than expected. Maybe if he pushed the helicopter a bit harder on the return leg. All pointless optimism. And he knew it. Through his headset, he heard Ariana Steele's voice. Still on her phone call. Something about clinical trials and quarterly projections. The two security guards sat silent and alert. Professional to their cores. One of them, the bigger one with the crew cut, kept scanning the cabin like threats might materialize from the upholstery. "Miss Steele," Jackson said through the intercom, "we're about 15 minutes from Canadian airspace. I'll need to switch over to Victoria approach control soon." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "Understood," came her crisp reply. "How much longer to Victoria?" 40 minutes, give or take. Weather's in our favor." That's when he noticed. The crew-cut security guard was moving. Not the casual shift of someone getting comfortable, but a deliberate, purposeful movement. His hand went to his jacket, and when it came out, it was holding a gun. A big one. The kind that made very permanent decisions about people's futures. "Nobody move," the guard said, his voice completely calm, like he was commenting on the weather. "Pilot, you're going to adjust our heading. We're going somewhere else." Time did that strange thing it does in crisis moments, simultaneously speeding up and slowing down. Jackson's training kicked in before his conscious mind caught up. He'd done enough emergency scenarios to know that the worst thing you could do in a helicopter was panic. The second security guard, the one by the window, was already moving to restrain him. But he was too slow. Crew Cut had planned this perfectly. He grabbed Ariana Steele, yanking her back against him, the gun pressed to her temple. "I said nobody move," Crew Cut repeated. "That includes you, Brennan. Sit down and shut up, or she dies right now." So the second guard, Brennan, wasn't in on it. That was something, but not much. One hostile with a gun and a hostage in a confined space 2,000 feet above the Pacific Ocean. This was every pilot's nightmare scenario. "Listen to me very carefully," Crew Cut continued, his voice still that eerie calm. "Pilot, what's your name?" "Jackson. Jackson Sullivan." "Okay, Jackson, here's how this works. You're going to fly exactly where I tell you. No heroics. No emergency calls. No deviation. You do that, everyone lives. You don't, and we see how well a helicopter flies after I put a bullet through your skull. We clear?" "Crystal clear." Jackson's hands remained steady on the controls, but his mind was racing. He'd trained for mechanical failures, weather emergencies, even engine failure over water. Never this. Never a hijacking. Ariana Steele's eyes met his in the mirror he used to monitor the cabin. She was terrified. Anyone would be. But there was something else there, too. Calculation. Analysis. She was looking for an opening, an option, some way to regain control. He gave her the smallest shake of his head. "Not yet. The wrong move now got people killed." "New heading," Crew Cut said. 270. Due west. Out over the ocean. "That's nothing but open water for hundreds of miles," Jackson said, trying to keep his voice level. "We've got fuel for maybe 2 more hours. There's nowhere to land out there." "That's not your concern. Fly the heading." Jackson adjusted the cyclic, banking the helicopter left. The coastline fell away behind them, replaced by endless gray-blue Pacific. Every mile they flew away from land was a mile further from rescue, from options, from any hope of a good outcome. "Who hired you?" Ariana asked, her voice remarkably steady considering the gun at her head. "How much are they paying you?" "I'll double it, triple it." Crew Cut laughed. "You really think this is about money? Lady, You've made a lot of enemies building your little empire. This is about justice. Justice for what? Shut up. You'll find out soon enough." He turned his attention to Brennan, who sat frozen, clearly calculating odds that weren't adding up to anything good. Weapon on the floor. Nice and slow. 2 fingers. Any sudden moves and I decorate the cabin with her brains. Brennan complied, his face a mask of professional fury. He'd been trained to protect his principal, and here he was, useless. Jackson understood the feeling. The helicopter thrummed on through empty sky. 2,000 feet below, the Pacific looked cold and unforgiving. Jackson had done water survival training. He knew the statistics. Even in summer, you had maybe an hour in that water before hypothermia took you. And that was if you survived a crash landing, which in a helicopter was far from guaranteed. His phone buzzed in his pocket, probably Mrs. Cho with an update about summer. His daughter, who in 3 hours would be looking for him in the stands at her soccer game, who would be disappointed but understanding because she was always understanding, who might grow up without a father because he'd been too focused on making $8,000 to notice the threat sitting 3 feet behind him. "You're thinking about escape options," Crew Cut said, reading him perfectly. "Don't. I spent 8 years flying helicopters in places that made this look like a joyride. I know every trick you might try. The second you deviate, the second you try something clever, she dies. Then you die. Then Brennan dies. Then I take the controls and finish the mission myself." "What mission?" Jackson asked. "If we're just flying out to sea, what's the point? We'll run out of fuel and crash anyway. We're meeting someone, a boat. They have additional fuel, and then we continue to our actual destination. A boat. That meant planning, resources, multiple people involved. This wasn't some lone wolf revenge plot. This was coordinated, professional, expensive. The company will pay any ransom," Ariana said. "My CFO has authorization to access emergency funds. Whatever they're paying you, we can beat it. Already told you, this isn't about money." Crew Cut's voice got harder. "Your company's drug trials killed my brother. Stage 3 cancer. He trusted your miracle cure. It gave him 6 more months of agony before it killed him worse than the cancer would have. The FDA buried the evidence. Your lawyers made his widow sign an NDA. You called it an adverse event. I call it murder." Jackson felt the pieces clicking together. This wasn't a hijacking for ransom. This was revenge wearing a professional disguise. "I'm sorry about your brother," Ariana said, and she sounded like she meant it. "Truly. But adverse reactions happen in trials. We report everything to the FDA. We don't bury evidence." "Liar." The gun pressed harder against her temple. "I've seen the documents. I know what you hid. And now you're going to answer for it." The helicopter flew on through empty sky. Below, the ocean stretched endlessly. Behind them, the coast was a gray smudge disappearing into distance. Ahead, nothing but water and whatever fate waited at the end of this flight. Jackson's training had taught him to stay calm in emergencies, to think through problems logically, to never give up until the skids touched ground. But nothing in his training covered this. A hijacker who knew helicopters. A hostage whose company might have actually done something terrible. A daughter waiting for him at a soccer game he'd never make. His hands stayed steady on the controls, but his mind was cataloging options, looking for openings, waiting for the moment when doing nothing became more dangerous than doing something. That moment was coming. He could feel it. The question was whether he'd recognize it in time. 15 minutes into their new heading, Jackson saw it, a dark speck on the horizon that gradually resolved into a vessel. Not a commercial ship, but something smaller, a yacht, maybe 40 feet, riding the swells with the confidence of serious money. As they approached, he could make out figures on deck. At least 3 people, maybe more. "That's your landing target," Crew Cut said. "Nice and easy. You've done deck landings before?" "Not on civilian vessels," Jackson said, "and never at gunpoint. Today's full of new experiences. Put us down on the aft deck." "They've cleared space." Landing a helicopter on a moving boat in open ocean was already a high-difficulty maneuver. Doing it while someone held a gun to your passenger's head elevated it to near impossible. But Jackson had logged thousands of hours in worse conditions. His hands moved through the descent checklist automatically, muscle memory taking over, while his conscious mind calculated angles, wind drift, and the yacht's pitch and roll. "Brennan," Crew Cut said without taking his eyes off Jackson, "you're going to sit very still while we transition. After we're down, you'll be secured below deck. Cooperate, and you live." "Problem? No problem," Brennan said through gritted teeth. The helpless fury in his voice was palpable. He'd failed his principal, and it was eating him alive. Jackson brought the helicopter into a hover 50 feet above the yacht's deck. The downdraft from the rotors kicked up spray, and the boat rocked in response. Through the windscreen, he could see the deck crew scrambling to secure loose items. One of them was waving hand signals, guiding him in. "Steady," he muttered to himself, making minute adjustments, the collective in his left hand, the cyclic in his right, both pedals working constantly to counteract the helicopter's natural tendency to drift and spin. The yacht rose and fell with the swells, and he had to time his descent between the peaks. "Any time now, pilot," Crew Cut said. "Rushing this gets everyone killed, including you." He waited for the right moment, that brief window, when the yacht's deck was level and steady. Then he dropped the collective, and the H-125 descended smoothly, touching down with barely a bump. His hands immediately went through the shutdown sequence, but Crew Cut interrupted. "Leave it running. We're not staying long." The deck crew approached, and Jackson saw they were armed. Professional security contractors by the look of them, not random criminals. Whatever this operation was, it had serious funding behind it. "Get her out," Crew Cut ordered. He hauled Ariana to her feet, still using her as a shield. "Pilot, you're coming too. Hands where I can see them." They exited the helicopter into the rotor wash, salt spray mixing with the artificial wind. The yacht's deck was polished teak that probably cost more per square foot than Jackson's apartment. Through the windows, he could see a luxurious interior, all leather and dark wood. Someone on this boat had money to burn. A woman emerged from the cabin, late 50s, gray hair pulled back severely, wearing expensive casual clothes that somehow looked like a uniform. Her face was hard, carved from granite and disappointment. "Miss Steele," she said, her voice cutting through the rotor noise. "I'm Dr. Patricia Wolf. We have things to discuss." "Dr. Wolf," Ariana replied, recognition flickering across her face. "You were on the Phase 2 trial review board. You resigned. I was forced out because I wouldn't approve your tainted data. You knew the trial results were compromised. You pushed through anyway because quarterly earnings mattered more than patient safety." "That's not true. We reported every adverse event. The FDA approved continuation." "The FDA that your company has in its pocket?" Dr. Wolf's smile was bitter. "Bring her below, and secure the pilot and the guard." They were herded down a narrow stairway into what looked like a converted cabin. Expensive but cramped. Brennan was zip-tied to a built-in bench, and Jackson received the same treatment, his hands secured behind his back. Ariana was kept separate, still under Crew Cut's immediate control. "Miss Steele and I need privacy," Dr. Wolf said. 30 minutes. Then we proceed with Phase 2. "What's Phase 2? Jackson asked, knowing he wouldn't like the answer. "Not your concern, pilot." Dr. Wolf's eyes were cold. "You were just transportation. Wrong place, wrong time. Your only job now is to stay quiet and stay alive." They took Ariana up to the main cabin. Through the deck above, Jackson could hear voices, but not words. Beside him, Brennan was testing his restraints and finding them professionally applied. "Well," Brennan said quietly, "this is bad. You have a gift for understatement. Former Coast Guard. What gave it away? The way you handled that deck landing. And you're not panicking. Military aviation? Private sector always," Jackson said. but I've done my share of challenging conditions. Got any ideas for getting out of this? Jackson looked around the cabin. Through a porthole, he could see his helicopter still sitting on the aft deck, rotors spinning down now. His phone was still in his pocket, but with his hands zip-tied behind him, it might as well have been on Mars. "Working on it," he said. Time crawled. 15 minutes passed. 20. Through the deck, the voices above grew heated. Someone was shouting, though whether it was Ariana or Dr. Wolf, Jackson couldn't tell. Then silence, heavy, ominous silence. When Dr. Wolf finally descended the stairs, her expression was troubled. Behind her came Crew Cut, pushing Ariana ahead of him. The CEO's composure had cracked. Her eyes were red, though whether from tears or anger, Jackson couldn't say. "We have a problem," Dr. Wolf announced. "Miss Steele claims she has evidence that contradicts my data, documents that suggest the trial issues weren't her fault. Internal sabotage by a board member with competing interests." "That's convenient," Crew Cut said skeptically. "The documents are real," Ariana insisted. "In my office safe in Seattle. Bank statements showing payments from Meridian Pharmaceuticals to our former chief medical officer. Email chains discussing how to discredit our trials to tank our stock price before their acquisition offer. I've been investigating for 3 months. I was going to present everything to the FBI next week." "You expect me to believe," Dr. Wolf said slowly, "that you're innocent? That this whole disaster was corporate sabotage? I expect you to look at the evidence before you do something you can't take back." Dr. Wolf was silent for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she turned to Crew Cut. "What's your brother's name? The one who died in the trial?" "David. David Preston. I remember him. Good man. Asked intelligent questions about side effects. He deserved better than what happened." "Then you know why we're here." "I do. But if she's telling the truth, if there really was sabotage, then we're punishing the wrong person. And your brother's death is being used to cover up corporate crimes even bigger than I imagined." Jackson watched this exchange with growing hope. Dr. Wolf was wavering. The righteous certainty that had driven this operation was cracking under the possibility of new information. "We need to verify her claims," Dr. Wolf said finally. "Before we proceed, how?" Crew Cut demanded. "We're in the middle of the ocean, with limited fuel and probably half the Coast Guard looking for a missing helicopter by now." As if on cue, Jackson's phone began buzzing in his pocket. Multiple calls coming through. Probably the charter company. Probably air traffic control wondering why he'd dropped off radar. Probably Summer's game starting soon with an empty seat where her father should be. "I have an idea," Jackson said. Everyone turned to look at him. "You want to verify her story? You've got her entire security team's attention right now. They're tracking her phone. Let me call my company, report a mechanical issue that forced us to land on a vessel for safety. Buys you time to check her claims without triggering a massive search and rescue operation." "Why would you help us?" Dr. Wolf asked suspiciously. "Because if you're wrong about her, you're about to commit a crime you can't undo. And because I've got a daughter who needs her father to come home." He met Dr. Wolf's eyes steadily. "I'm betting you're someone who wanted justice, not murder. Prove me right." Dr. Wolf studied him for a long moment, then nodded to Crew Cut. "Cut his hands free. Let him make the call." As the zip ties came off and circulation returned painfully to his hands, Jackson pulled out his phone. 7 missed calls. A text from Mrs. Cho. "Summer's asking about you. Game starts in 20 minutes. His heart sank. He was going to miss it. Again. But right now, keeping everyone alive took priority over keeping promises. He dialed the charter company. His boss answered on the first ring. "Jackson, where the hell are you? We've got air traffic control asking questions." "Had a warning light," Jackson said smoothly. "Oil pressure, fluctuation. Precautionary landing on a private vessel. Everything's fine, but I need to run diagnostics before continuing. Tell ATC it's handled." "You're sure?" Because we can send another aircraft if needed. Negative. Just need an hour. Maybe 2. I'll file an updated flight plan when we're ready to proceed. He hung up and looked at Dr. Wolf. That buys you time. Now what? Now, Ariana said, her voice steady despite everything. I make a call of my own. To someone I trust. Someone who can access those documents and verify my story. Who? Dr. Wolf demanded. My CFO. Lila Curtis. She has access to my office safe. She also has the backbone to tell you if I'm lying. The call was made on speaker, everyone crowding around to hear. When Lila Curtis answered, her voice was tight with controlled panic. Ariana, where are you? We've had reports of your helicopter going off course. Security is mobilizing. Lila, listen carefully. I need you to go to my office. Access safe code 7739. Inside is a red folder marked Meridian Investigation. Open it. Are you under duress? Yes, but I need you to do this anyway. Lives depend on it. 10 minutes later, they had their answer. The documents were real. Bank transfers totaling $2 million from a Meridian Pharmaceuticals shell company to Dr. Richard Calloway, Steele Biotechnology's former chief medical officer. Email chains discussing how to contaminate trial data. Notes about which patients to target for maximum impact while maintaining plausible deniability. Oh God, Dr. Wolf whispered, her face gone pale. What have I done? You haven't done it yet, Ariana said quietly. That's what matters. Crew cut. David Preston's brother looked like a man whose entire world had just inverted. My brother died because of corporate sabotage? Not negligence? Not greed. Someone murdered him intentionally? To tank our stock price before an acquisition. Ariana confirmed. Your brother and 36 other people were collateral damage in a hostile takeover scheme. Dr. Calloway is already being investigated. This would have given prosecutors everything they needed. The boat rocked gently on the swells. In the distance, Jackson could see the coast. Impossibly far away, his phone showed 9:43 a.m. Summer's game had started. She was playing right now, probably scoring goals, definitely looking for him in the stands. So what now? Brennan asked into the heavy silence. Dr. Wolf looked at each of them in turn, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who'd just realized they'd been played by people smarter and more ruthless than themselves. Now, she said, we figure out how to turn this disaster into justice. Real justice. Not the revenge plot I let myself get drawn into. She turned to Crew Cut. You wanted accountability for your brother's death. Miss Steele just handed you the actual guilty parties. The question is, what are you going to do with it? David Preston's brother looked at Ariana for a long moment. Then, slowly, he lowered his gun. I guess, he said quietly, we start over. The flight back to Seattle was nothing like the morning departure. The helicopter carried the weight of what had almost happened, what could have gone so terribly wrong. Dr. Wolf and Crew Cut, whose real name turned out to be Nathan Preston, had surrendered themselves to Coast Guard custody after a tense negotiation that involved lawyers, federal agents, and more phone calls than Jackson could count. But that all came later. First, there was the moment when Nathan Preston looked at Ariana Steele and said the words that changed everything. I'm sorry. I let grief turn me into something my brother would have hated. Ariana had studied him for a long moment before responding. Your grief was valid. Your anger was justified. You were just aiming it at the wrong target. Help me prove who really killed your brother, and we'll make sure they pay for it. Now, as Seattle's skyline emerged from the afternoon haze, Jackson was acutely aware of the woman sitting in the cabin behind him. Not the billionaire CEO from the morning flight, but someone who'd faced death with remarkable composure and then offered justice instead of vengeance to the man who'd threatened her life. "Mr. Sullivan," her voice came through the headset. "What time is it?" He checked the instrument panel. 2:47 p.m. "Your daughter's game. You missed it." It wasn't a question. The math was obvious. They'd lost 5 hours to the hijacking, the standoff, the negotiations. Summer's game had started at 10 and probably ended around a flea 11:30. He'd missed the whole thing. "Yeah," he said, keeping his voice neutral. "I missed it. I'm sorry. That's my fault. Pretty sure the fault lies with the people who hijacked us. Still, you were flying me when it happened, and I intend to make it right." He didn't respond. What was there to say? Money couldn't buy back time, couldn't give him those hours of watching Summer play, couldn't erase the disappointment in her voice when Mrs. Cho had to tell her that Dad wasn't coming. Again, the helipad appeared below them, surrounded by emergency vehicles with lights flashing. Apparently, his mechanical issue story hadn't completely prevented a response. The moment his skids touched concrete, they were surrounded by security personnel, paramedics, and what looked like half of Seattle PD. "Stay in your seats until security clears the area," Jackson announced through the intercom. Following protocol, even though every instinct screamed at him to shut down and get to his daughter. The debrief took 2 hours. Federal agents asking the same questions 12 different ways. Building a timeline. Taking statements. Jackson answered everything truthfully, watching the clock and calculating how long it would take to get across the city to his apartment where Summer was waiting. "Mr. Sullivan," one of the agents said, "you kept everyone alive up there. Quick thinking with that phone call. We're going to need you available for follow-up questions, but you're free to go for now." Finally, he was halfway to his truck when a voice called out behind him, "Jackson, wait." Ariana Steele stood by a black SUV, her security team hovering nearby. Brennan was there too, looking like he wanted to personally apologize to everyone in a 3-mile radius for the security breach. "I need to get home," Jackson said. "My daughter. I know, and I'm not going to keep you, but I want you to have this." She held out an envelope. "The $8,000 we agreed on, plus another $12,000 for hazard pay, and my card. I'd like to talk to you about a job opportunity when you have time." He took the envelope, feeling the thickness of it. $20,000, more money than he'd made in the last 3 months combined. A job opportunity. "I need a new head of aviation security. Someone who can stay calm under pressure. Someone who understands both flying and threat assessment. Someone who doesn't panic when plans go catastrophically wrong. Miss Steele, I'm a charter pilot. I fly rich people to their meetings. I'm not qualified to run corporate security. You kept a hijacker from killing me while landing a helicopter on a moving boat. I'd say you're qualified." She smiled slightly. "Think about it. The salary is $200,000 base, plus benefits, plus a schedule that doesn't require you to miss your daughter's games. 200,000. The number hit him like a physical force. That was life-changing money. That was Summer's college fund and the roof fixed and never having to choose between paying bills and buying groceries money. "Why me?" he asked. "You could hire anyone, Secret Service, former military contractors, people with actual security credentials. Because when Nathan Preston put a gun to my head, you didn't freeze. You calculated. You looked for openings. And when the moment came, you chose de-escalation over heroics. That's the kind of judgment I need protecting my operations." She paused. "Also, you negotiated up from 5 to 8,000 this morning. Anyone willing to negotiate with me is someone I want on my team." Despite everything, he almost laughed. "Let me think about it. Right now I need to get to my daughter." "Of course. Call me when you're ready to talk." He drove across Seattle in a daze, the envelope sitting heavy in his passenger seat. $20,000, a job offer that would transform their lives, and a daughter who'd spent her morning wondering why her father had broken another promise. Their apartment was in a building that charitable people called vintage and honest people called barely code compliant. Fourth floor walk-up, water stains on the ceiling, radiators that clanked like angry ghosts. But it was theirs, and Summer had decorated her room with hand-drawn pictures of soccer balls and inspirational quotes she'd copied from the internet. Mrs. Cho met him at the door, her expression carefully neutral. She's in her room. The game went well. She scored 2 goals. 2 goals? He felt pride and guilt war in his chest. That's amazing. She kept looking for you. Asked me 3 times if maybe you were just running late. The guilt won. Thanks for staying with her, Mrs. Cho. I'll pay you extra for the overtime. I don't want extra. I want you to go talk to your daughter. Summer's room was small but bright, the afternoon sun streaming through windows she'd insisted on keeping uncurtained because soccer players need vitamin D. Dad. She sat on her bed, still in her uniform, a participation medal around her neck and an expression that was trying very hard to be mature and understanding. Hey, baby girl, he said from the doorway. I heard you scored 2 goals. You weren't there. Not accusatory, just stating a fact. Somehow that made it worse. I know. I'm so sorry. Something happened with work. An emergency. I wanted to be there more than anything. You always say that. I know I do. And I know I keep letting you down. But Summer, I need you to understand something. Everything I do, every flight I take, every extra hour I work, it's all for you. To keep us going. To give you opportunities I never had. She looked at him with eyes that were far too wise for 9 years old. Dad, I don't need opportunities. I just need you to be there. The words hit him like a punch. Simple truth from someone too young to understand the complexity of bills and rent and keeping a roof over their heads. Except maybe she did understand. In her own way. Maybe she understood better than he did. You're right, he said quietly. You're absolutely right. He sat on her bed and pulled out his phone, showing her the photo from that morning. Her in her uniform, smiling that gap-toothed smile. I looked at this picture probably 50 times today. Kept me going through some really tough moments. You want to know what happened? She nodded, setting aside the wall of mature disappointment. So he told her, age-appropriate version, leaving out the gun and the death threats, but explaining about the hijacking, the boat, the standoff. About Dr. Wolf and Nathan Preston, and how sometimes good people do bad things when they're hurting. About how he'd helped stop something terrible from happening. So you were being a hero, Summer said when he finished. I was just doing my job, keeping people safe. That's what heroes do, Dad. They keep people safe, even when it's hard. She paused. I'm still sad you missed my game, though. Me too. More than you know. Did you at least get paid a lot for the dangerous flight? He almost laughed at her pragmatism. Yeah, actually. And I got offered a new job. One that pays a lot more and has better hours. Which means I could be at more of your games. Her eyes lit up. Really? You'd be around more? If I take the job, yeah. It'd mean working for the lady whose life I helped save today. Running aviation security for her company. Is she nice? She's complicated, but I think she's trying to do the right things. She wants to make medicine that helps people. Summer considered this with the seriousness she brought to all important decisions. You should take it, not because of the money, but because maybe you can help more people if you work for her. Like you helped her today. Out of the mouths of babes indeed. His 9-year-old daughter had just articulated what he'd been struggling to figure out since Ariana Steele made the offer. What about you? He asked. Can you handle your dad working for a billionaire? Might mean some fancy events. Meeting important people. Will I have to wear dresses? Probably sometimes. She made a face. Gross, but I'll do it if it means you're home more. He pulled her into a hug. This fierce little person who'd learned to be understanding when she should have been allowed to be disappointed. I'm going to do better, I promise. And this time I'm going to keep that promise. You always say that too, she said, but she was smiling now. His phone buzzed, a text from a number he didn't recognize. Miss Sullivan, this is Lila Curtis, Miss Steele's CFO. Ariana mentioned she offered you a position. If you're interested, we'd like to discuss details Monday morning. Also, she asked me to send you something. A second text followed with a video attachment. He opened it, curious. The video showed a soccer field. Summer's game, he realized. Someone had recorded it. The camera panned across the field, found Summer, and zoomed in as she maneuvered past two defenders and scored. The timestamp showed 10:23 a.m. A third text. Miss Steele had your daughter's game live-streamed when she realized you'd miss it. She thought you might want to see what happened. For what it's worth, she's really good. Your daughter. Natural talent. He stared at the phone, something tight in his chest loosening. Ariana Steele had arranged to have Summer's game recorded. While being held hostage on a boat in the Pacific Ocean, she'd thought about his daughter's soccer game. What is it? Summer asked, trying to see the screen. Someone recorded your game. Want to watch it together? They spent the next hour on her bed, watching Summer's highlights. She provided running commentary on every play, explaining what she was thinking, what worked, what she'd do differently next time. Jackson asked questions, praised her footwork, and felt something shift in his understanding of what the day had meant. He'd missed being there in person. That hurt, and probably always would. But he'd been doing something important, something that mattered, and the person he'd helped had thought to make sure he didn't miss everything. That night, after Summer was asleep, he sat at their small kitchen table and looked at Ariana Steele's business card. Embossed letters on heavy stock that probably cost more than his phone bill. $200,000 a year. Regular hours. Benefits. A chance to do more than just fly people from point A to point B. He picked up his phone and typed out a text. Miss Steele, it's Jackson Sullivan. I'd like to discuss that job opportunity. When works for you? The reply came within minutes. Monday, 9 a.m., my office. Bring your daughter. I'd like to meet the person who taught you what matters. He smiled at that. Looked around their small apartment, with its water-stained ceiling and clanking radiators. This was about to change. All of it. The question was whether he was ready for that change. But then, as Summer had pointed out, heroes didn't get to choose comfortable timing. They just did what needed to be done. The Steele Biotechnologies building rose 47 stories above downtown Seattle. All glass and steel, and the kind of architecture that said, "We have more money than gravity can contain." Jackson stood on the sidewalk Monday morning, Summer's hand in his, both of them staring up at the tower like tourists confronting their first skyscraper. That's a really tall building, Summer observed. Yeah, it is. Do they have an elevator? I certainly hope so. He'd dressed in his best clothes, which meant khakis without stains, and a button-down shirt he'd ironed himself. Summer wore her favorite outfit, jeans and a soccer jersey, because he'd learned long ago that forcing her into dresses was a battle with no winners. The lobby was all polished marble and modern art that probably cost more than a house. Security guards in crisp uniforms monitored everyone who entered. A reception desk that looked carved from a single piece of wood stretched 30 feet across the entrance. Can I help you? The receptionist asked with a smile that was professional but not quite warm. Jackson Sullivan. I have a 9 o'clock with Miss Steele. The smile became genuine. Of course, Mr. Sullivan. We've been expecting you. Miss Curtis will be right down. They waited in chairs that were somehow both beautiful and uncomfortable. A design philosophy Jackson didn't understand. Summer swung her legs, not quite reaching the floor, taking in everything with wide eyes. Everyone's wearing suits, she whispered. Yeah, it's that kind of place. Are you going to have to wear a suit? Probably. You're going to look weird. He was saved from responding by the arrival of Lila Curtis. She was in her early 40s, with short silver hair and an efficient energy that suggested she ran on coffee and competence. Mr. Sullivan, wonderful to meet you in person. And you must be Summer. She shook Summer's hand with the same seriousness she'd shown Jackson. Ariana mentioned you're quite the soccer player. I scored 2 goals on Saturday, Summer said proudly. Impressive. Maybe you can teach our company teams some moves. We're terrible but enthusiastic. She gestured toward the elevators. Shall we? Ariana's cleared her morning for this conversation. The elevator moved so smoothly that Jackson barely felt the ascent until his ears popped. The numbers climbed. 20, 30, 40, finally stopping at 47. The executive floor. The doors opened onto a space that looked more like a modern art gallery than an office. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views that stretched from Mount Rainier to the Olympic Peninsula. People moved through the space with purpose, everyone looking successful and slightly stressed. This is weird, Summer whispered, staying close to his side. Little bit, yeah, he agreed. Ariana's office occupied a corner that probably had the best views in the city. She stood at the windows when they entered, talking on her phone in that rapid-fire way that suggested she was solving 3 problems simultaneously. When she saw them, she wrapped up the call immediately. Jackson, Summer, thank you for coming. She crossed the office, shaking his hand and then kneeling to Summer's level. I'm Ariana. Your dad saved my life on Saturday. He said you were in trouble, Summer replied, studying her with open curiosity. Are you okay now? I am, thanks to him. And thank you for letting me borrow him. Even though it meant he missed your game. He watches too many of my games anyway. It's getting embarrassing. Ariana laughed at that, a genuine sound that transformed her face. Well, if this job works out, he'll probably be at even more. I hope that's okay. I guess I can handle it. They settled into a conversation area that was probably meant for high-level negotiations, but today hosted a 9-year-old explaining soccer strategy while the adults listened. Lila appeared with coffee for them and juice for Summer, along with pastries that looked too elegant to eat. So, Ariana said eventually, let's talk about the position, head of aviation security. You'd oversee all company helicopter operations, which includes 3 aircraft currently. You'd develop security protocols, train pilots, coordinate with ground security on executive transport. It's part logistics, part strategy, part crisis management. I don't have any management experience, Jackson pointed out. You managed a hijacking crisis that could have ended in multiple deaths. You kept calm, made smart decisions, and found a solution that saved lives and prevented a tragedy. That's better than any MBA program can teach. What about qualifications? Certifications? We'll get you whatever you need. Training, credentials, whatever makes sense. I'm not hiring a resume, Jackson. I'm hiring judgment and character. Lila pulled out a folder. The offer package. $200,000 base salary. Performance bonuses up to $50,000 annually. Full health and dental. $401K matching. And most importantly, regulated hours. No more 3 a.m. charter calls. No more missing family events for last-minute flights. Summer was trying not to look too interested, but Jackson could see her processing the no more missing family events part. There's one catch, Ariana continued. Well, several catches, really. First, I travel frequently. You'd need to be available for that, but with advance notice and proper scheduling. Second, after Saturday, we're going to be under intense scrutiny. The FBI investigation into Meridian Pharmaceuticals is expanding. Media attention will be significant. People will dig into everyone associated with me, meaning they'll dig into my background extensively. I need to know now if there's anything that'll become a problem. He thought about his life, failed marriage to a woman who decided motherhood wasn't for her. Decent credit despite constant financial pressure. No criminal record beyond a speeding ticket from 3 years ago. I'm boring, he said finally. Single dad, pays his bills, flies, helicopters, that's about it. Perfect. Boring is severely underrated. She paused. The third catch is the biggest one. After what happened with Nathan Preston infiltrating my security team, I need people around me that I can trust absolutely. That means this job isn't just professional. You'd be part of a very small circle of people who see behind the corporate mask, who know when I'm scared or uncertain or completely out of my depth. Can you handle that? It was an unexpectedly vulnerable question. The billionaire CEO admitting she needed more than just competent employees. She needed allies. I'm not great at corporate politics, he warned. Neither am I. That's why my board hates me half the time. She smiled slightly. I need people who tell me the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. People who put safety and ethics ahead of convenience. Saturday proved you're that person. The question is whether you want to be that person in this context. Summer tugged on his sleeve. Dad, can I say something? Of course, baby girl. She looked at Ariana seriously. My dad's the best person I know. He works really hard, and he's always trying to do the right thing even when it's expensive. If you want someone honest who won't lie to you, he's good at that. Sometimes too good because he tells me my drawings aren't great when I know they're not. But he's always honest about it. Ariana's eyes crinkled with amusement. That's an excellent reference. Very thorough. I have more if you need it. I think that covers it. She turned back to Jackson. So, what do you say? Want to take a chance on this weird situation? He looked around the office with its expensive art and impossible views. Thought about their apartment with its leaking ceiling. About Summer's college fund that didn't exist yet. About making promises and actually being able to keep them. When do I start? How about now? We can get you set up with HR. Start the background check process. Show you the aviation facility. Unless you have other commitments today. I need to formally quit my current job. Give them notice. Do it here. I'll pay out whatever notice period they require. And Jackson, if any of your fellow pilots are looking for work, we're expanding operations. I'd rather hire people you trust than strangers. It was really happening. His life was changing, right here in this office, with its view of the entire city. Summer, Lila said, while your dad handles boring paperwork, want to see our research labs? We've got some pretty cool science happening. Nothing dangerous, just interesting. Summer looked to Jackson for permission. He nodded. Stay with Miss Curtis. Don't touch anything that looks important. Everything looks important, Summer pointed out, but she went willingly enough. Once they were alone, Ariana's professional demeanor softened slightly. Can I ask you something personal? Sure. Summer's mother. She's not in the picture. Left when Summer was 18 months old. Said she wasn't cut out for being a mom. Haven't heard from her since. I'm sorry. That must be difficult. It is, but it also means I don't have to navigate custody schedules or co-parenting disagreements. Silver linings. She was quiet for a moment. I need you to understand something. This job, working this closely with me, it's going to change your life. Media, attention, social scrutiny. People will make assumptions about our relationship. They'll dig into your history, Summer's history, everything. It can be invasive and cruel. Are you trying to talk me out of taking the job? I'm making sure you know what you're signing up for. Saturday was dramatic, but the aftermath might be worse. The FBI investigation is going to take months. Nathan Preston and Dr. Wolf are cooperating, which means trials, testimony, media circus. You'll be part of that story whether you want to be or not. He thought about that. About Summer dealing with attention at school. About their privacy disappearing. About entering a world where people watched your every move looking for scandal or weakness. Here's what I know, he said finally. Saturday, you could have just paid me off and sent me on my way. Instead, you offered me a job that lets me actually be a father, instead of just someone who pays the bills. You recorded Summer's game when you were being held hostage. That tells me more about who you are than any corporate biography. That was Lila's doing. I just mentioned it. You mentioned it while a gun was pointed at your head. That still counts. She smiled at that. Okay. Then welcome to Steel Biotechnologies. Jackson Sullivan. Let's see if we can avoid any more hijackings. The rest of the day was a blur of paperwork and orientations. HR processing that involved more forms than he'd seen in his entire life. Security clearances, building access badges, a medical exam that was more thorough than anything he'd experienced outside the military. By evening, when they finally made it back to their apartment, Summer was exhausted and full of stories about the laboratories and the scientists and the super cool microscopes that can see tiny things. "So," he said as she got ready for bed, "what do you think? Was it a good decision?" "Dad, they have a cafeteria with 5 different dessert options. It's the best decision ever." He laughed. Solid reasoning. As she drifted off to sleep, he sat in their small kitchen and looked at the new badge that gave him access to a 47-story building, where decisions that affected millions of people got made every day. His phone buzzed. A text from Ariana. "Thank you for taking a chance on this. On me. I think we're going to do good work together." He typed back, "Thank you for taking a chance on us. Looking forward to it." Outside their window, Seattle spread out in lights and possibility. Tomorrow, his old life would start becoming his former life. Tomorrow, he'd begin learning how to navigate a world of corporate complexity and billionaire problems. But tonight, he was still just a single dad in a 4th-floor walk-up, watching his daughter sleep and hoping he'd made the right choice. Time would tell. It always did. The first crisis hit on his 3rd day. Jackson was still learning the basics, navigation protocols and security clearances, and the difference between various levels of corporate emergency, when Lila appeared in his temporary office with an expression that suggested bad news incoming. "We have a situation. Conference room 3, now." The conference room was already full. Ariana at the head of the table, looking like she hadn't slept. Her legal team, 3 sharp-eyed attorneys in expensive suits. 2 people Jackson didn't recognize but who carried themselves like federal agents. And Brennan, the security guard from the helicopter, now reinstated after extensive vetting. "Jackson, good," Ariana said when he entered. "You need to hear this. Agent Cole, please continue." The woman he'd pegged as federal agent nodded. "Mr. Sullivan, I'm Special Agent Thania Foster, FBI. This is Agent Hunter Tate. We're investigating the hijacking incident, and we've uncovered something disturbing." She pulled up photos on the conference room screen. Bank records, email chains, surveillance photos. Nathan Preston's hijacking wasn't entirely his own idea. He was recruited, funded, guided by someone with extensive resources and a specific agenda. Meridian Pharmaceuticals, Jackson guessed. "We thought so initially. But it goes deeper. Meridian was just one player in a larger scheme. We've identified at least 3 other pharmaceutical companies working together to destroy Steel Biotechnology's reputation and stock value." Ariana's jaw was tight. "How many attempts have there been?" "That we know of. 6 in the past 18 months. Sabotage trials, leaked false data. The helicopter hijacking was just the most dramatic. But Mr. Sullivan, you're now part of this story. These companies have significant resources and no apparent ethical boundaries. You should expect them to come after you." "Come after me? How?" Agent Tate pulled up another image. Jackson's apartment building. Photos taken from across the street. Time stamped from yesterday. "They're already surveilling you, looking for leverage, weaknesses, anything they can use to compromise Miss Steele's security team." Jackson felt ice in his stomach. "My daughter, are they watching Summer?" "We don't think they'd go that far, but we can't rule it out. We recommend increased security. Maybe a temporary relocation, until we can neutralize the threat." "Absolutely not." The words came out harder than he'd intended. "I'm not uprooting Summer's life. She's had enough instability." "Jackson," Ariana said quietly, "if they think they can use her to get to me, then we make sure they can't. Better security at school, escorts, whatever it takes. But she stays in her home, in her school, with her friends. She's 9. She doesn't get pulled into corporate warfare." The room was silent for a moment. Then Ariana nodded. Agreed. Lila, coordinate with security. I want protocols in place by end of day. Summer Sullivan's safety is now a company priority. After the meeting, Brennan caught up with Jackson in the hallway. That was ballsy, pushing back on the FBI's recommendation. That was being a father. There's a difference. Fair enough. But Sullivan, you need to understand what you're dealing with. These companies have billions at stake. They've already tried kidnapping, sabotage. You think they'll hesitate to pressure a single dad through his daughter? Let them try. Jackson's voice was flat. I kept everyone alive in a hijacked helicopter. I can handle corporate intimidation. Can you? Brennan's expression was serious. Because handling physical threats is one thing, but these people are sophisticated. They'll investigate your finances, your history. They'll look for any weakness, failed marriage, money problems, anything that makes you look unstable or unreliable. Then they'll leak it to the media. Make you seem like a bad hire. Undermine Miss Steele's judgment. My life is an open book. Not particularly interesting, but nothing to hide. Everyone has something to hide. The question is whether you've thought about what yours is. The conversation stuck with him as he drove to pick up Summer from school. He'd arranged his schedule to be there every day at 3:15, standing with the other parents in the pickup line. Some recognized him from news coverage of the hijacking. Most were just curious about the new face. Summer's dad. A woman approached him, friendly smile, yoga clothes that suggested a lifestyle he couldn't afford. I'm Madison Brooks, Kiana's mom. The girls are in the same class. Nice to meet you. We heard you're working for Ariana Steele now. That's so exciting. Is it true you saved her life? Here it was. The attention Ariana had warned about. I helped resolve a difficult situation. That's all. So modest. Listen, some of us are organizing a parent social next Friday. Wine and cheese. You should come. It'd be great to get to know you better. Something in her tone made him cautious. Too interested, too friendly. I'll check my schedule. Thanks for the invite. When Summer emerged from school, she was talking animatedly with another girl, presumably Kiana, but her smile dimmed when she saw the black SUV parked behind his truck, the one with Brennan inside, part of the new security protocol. Why is there a man following us? She asked, once they were in the truck. Just extra safety measures. Because of my new job. Is someone trying to hurt us? He'd promised himself he wouldn't lie to her, wouldn't sugarcoat reality. But he also didn't want to terrify her. Some people are unhappy about the work Miss Steele does. We're just being careful. Because of the helicopter thing. Because of the helicopter thing. She was quiet for a moment, processing. Am I in danger? No, I won't let anything happen to you. Neither will Miss Steele. We have good people making sure you're safe. Like the man in the SUV. Exactly like him. That evening, after Summer was asleep, Jackson's phone rang. Unknown number, but something made him answer. Mr. Sullivan. The voice was male, educated, carrying the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. My name is Preston Ford. I represent Vanguard Pharmaceuticals. I'd like to discuss an opportunity with you. Not interested. You haven't heard what I'm offering. $1 million. Cash. Transferred to any account you designate. All you have to do is provide us with information about Ariana Steele's operations. Travel schedules. Security protocols. Nothing that would put her in danger. Just business intelligence. You're bribing me. I'm offering you financial security. $1 million. Mr. Sullivan, think about what that means for your daughter. College fully paid for. A real house instead of that apartment. Security for both of you. How do you know where I live? We know everything about you. We know Summer needs braces in 2 years. We know you're 3 months behind on your truck payment. We know you've been carrying credit card debt since your divorce. We're offering to solve all of that. One simple decision. Jackson's hand tightened on the phone. Here's my decision. If you call again, I report this to the FBI. If you approach my daughter, I make it my life's mission to destroy you personally. And if you think I'm exaggerating, remember that I'm the guy who talked down a hijacker at 2,000 feet. Threatening my family is where my patience ends. We clear?" He hung up without waiting for a response. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from fury. They'd investigated his finances, knew about his struggles, thought they could buy him. The phone rang again immediately. Different number. He answered, ready to unleash everything he hadn't said the first time. "Jackson, it's Ariana. I just got a very concerning call from my security team. Someone tried to bribe you." "How did you know?" "Because they tried the same thing with 3 other employees today. It's coordinated." "Did you accept?" "Of course not." "Did you record the call?" He hadn't thought of that. "No." "Should I have?" "For next time, yes, but don't worry. We expected this. They're testing everyone close to me, seeing who can be bought or pressured. You passed. Some others didn't. Others took the bribe. 2 did. Both are already terminated. This is going to get worse before it gets better, Jackson. These companies are desperate. Our next drug trial results come out next month. If they're positive, it's a billion-dollar market shift. They'll do anything to prevent that." He sat down heavily on his couch. "What do you need from me?" "Keep being you. Don't take bribes. Don't compromise. Protect your daughter. And maybe, if you're willing, consider moving into corporate housing temporarily. We have secure apartments, better schools nearby, more protection." "Ariana, I can't just uproot Summer's life." "I know. But think about it. Because they're going to keep pushing, keep probing, looking for weaknesses. The question is whether we make it easy or hard for them." After she hung up, Jackson sat in the dark of his small apartment. Outside, he could see Brennan's SUV still parked on the street, watching, protecting, a reminder that his life had changed in ways he was still understanding. He thought about Preston Ford's offer. $1 million, everything that money could solve. Compared to his new salary, which was good but not transformational, the temptation lasted exactly as long as it took him to look at Summer's door, at the hand-drawn pictures of soccer balls she'd taped there, at the life he was trying to build for her based on principles, not convenience. Some things couldn't be bought. Some things shouldn't be. He just hoped that belief didn't end up costing them everything. 3 months into the job, Jackson realized his life had become something he didn't recognize. The leaked ceiling was fixed. Summer had new cleats and was thriving in a better soccer program. They'd moved into corporate housing, a townhouse in a secure community that felt like a different planet from their old apartment. But the biggest change wasn't the money or the security. It was Ariana. She'd started showing up at Summer's games, sitting in the stands with her security detail, cheering alongside other parents who whispered and stared but gradually accepted her presence. She brought coffee on cold mornings and asked intelligent questions about soccer strategy that made Summer glow with pride. "Why does she come?" Summer asked one Saturday evening after scoring the winning goal. "She's really busy." "Because she cares," Jackson said, realizing it was true. That night, after dropping Summer with Mrs. Cho for a sleepover with friends, Jackson found himself in Ariana's office helping review security footage from a concerning incident at their Vancouver facility. It was late, the building empty except for security staff and the 2 of them. "You should go home," Ariana said around midnight, rubbing her eyes. "You've been here for 16 hours. So have you." "I'm used to it." "Doesn't make it healthy." He pulled out his phone, ordered food from the Thai place that delivered to the building. "When's the last time you ate?" She had to think about it. "Breakfast, maybe?" "That's 18 hours ago. No wonder you look exhausted." "I don't look exhausted. I look focused." "You look like someone who forgets she's human." The food arrived 20 minutes later, and he made her stop working long enough to eat. They sat in her conference area, the city lights spread below them, talking about things that had nothing to do with work. She told him about growing up with parents who expected perfection, about building a company from nothing because she wanted to prove she could, about the loneliness that came with success. He told her about his marriage falling apart, about learning to braid Summer's hair from YouTube videos, about the guilt of never feeling like he was enough as a father. "You're an amazing father," Ariana said quietly. "Summer's lucky to have you. Most days I feel like I'm barely holding it together." Welcome to parenthood. Also welcome to running a company. Also welcome to being human. We're all barely holding it together. Some of us just hide it better. Something shifted between them that night. A recognition that they were more than employer and employee. They were two people trying to navigate impossible situations while pretending they had everything figured out. The media noticed. Of course, they noticed. Photos appeared online. Ariana Steele at a soccer game. Billionaire CEO spending evenings with her head of aviation security. Speculation ran wild about the nature of their relationship. "We should address this," Lila said during a morning briefing. "The rumors are affecting company perception." "What rumors?" Summer asked. She'd started coming to the office after school, doing homework in an empty conference room while Jackson worked. "Nothing important," Jackson said quickly. But Ariana looked at Summer seriously. "Some people think your dad and I are dating. We're not, but they like to make up stories. Would it be bad if you were?" Summer asked with the directness only 9-year-olds possessed. The adults exchanged glances. "No," Ariana said carefully. "It wouldn't be bad. It would just be complicated. Adults always say that when they're scared of something." After Summer left, Ariana turned to Jackson. "She's not wrong." "About which part?" "The scared part. I am scared. Of this. Of what's happening between us. Of messing it up." "Nothing's happening between us," Jackson said, but they both knew he was lying. Everything was happening between them. Had been since the helicopter. Maybe before. The question was what they were going to do about it. The call came at 3 in the morning. Ariana's voice was tight with controlled panic. "Jackson, I need you. Now." He was dressed and moving within minutes, leaving Summer with the building's security guard. By the time he reached Ariana's penthouse, FBI agents were already there. Agent Foster looked grim. "We have a situation. Someone leaked confidential trial data from your upcoming drug approval. The leak is designed to look like it came from you, Miss Steele. Falsified emails showing you knew about safety issues and hid them." "That's impossible," Ariana said. "The data doesn't exist. The trial was clean." "We know. But the forgeries are good. Really good. By morning, every news outlet will be running stories about Steele Biotechnologies covering up dangerous side effects. Your stock will crash. The FDA will halt your approval process. You'll be facing criminal charges." Jackson watched Ariana process this, saw the moment she understood the scope of the attack. This wasn't just corporate sabotage. This was an attempt to destroy everything she'd built. "How do we fight it?" she asked. "We can't. Not in time. The best option is to step down temporarily. Let someone else run the company while we investigate. Distance yourself from the scandal. If I step down, they win. Every pharmaceutical company that wants to operate without ethics or oversight wins. If you don't step down, you might face prison." Agent Tate added, "These charges are serious." Ariana looked at Jackson. "What do you think?" Everyone in the room turned to stare. Why was the billionaire CEO asking her pilot for strategic advice? "I think," Jackson said carefully, "that stepping down means admitting guilt in the court of public opinion. I think you fight, but you need to be smart about it." "Smart how?" "You've been investigating your competitors for months. You have evidence of their sabotage attempts. Release it. All of it. Show the pattern. Show that this is just one more attack in a coordinated campaign. Make it impossible for anyone to believe the forgeries." "That's incredibly risky," Foster warned. You'd be starting a war with some of the most powerful companies in America. They already started the war, Jackson replied. This is just fighting back. Ariana was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who'd just decided to stop playing defense. Get Lila on the phone, she said. We're holding a press conference today. The next 12 hours were chaos. Lawyers arguing about liability. PR specialists warning about backlash. Board members demanding Ariana reconsider. Through it all, she remained focused, preparing to stake everything on transparency and truth. This could destroy you, Jackson said as they prepared for the press conference. It could, she agreed. But hiding would definitely destroy me. At least this way, I'm fighting. The press conference was brutal. Reporters shouting questions about the leaked data, cameras catching every flicker of expression. But Ariana stood firm, presenting evidence of the coordinated sabotage, naming companies, showing bank records and email chains. I'm not perfect, she said into the cameras, but I'm honest. And I will not let corruption hide behind accusations of corruption. These companies want me gone because I threaten their ability to profit from suffering. I won't be gone. I won't be silent. And I won't let them win. By evening, the tide had turned. Other pharmaceutical executives were being questioned. Stock prices were shifting. The FBI was expanding investigations. Ariana Steele had gone from accused to accuser, but there was a cost. That night, as they watched coverage in her office, she finally broke down. The stress, the fear, the weight of it all crashing down. Jackson held her while she cried, this strong woman who'd carried so much for so long. I'm tired, she whispered. So tired of fighting. I know. But you don't fight alone anymore. She looked up at him. Don't I? No, he said simply. You don't. And then he kissed her, soft and careful and full of everything they'd been avoiding for months. When they finally pulled apart, she was smiling through tears. That was complicated. Very, he agreed. Worth it? Absolutely. The fallout from Ariana's press conference took weeks to settle. 3 pharmaceutical CEOs resigned. Federal investigations expanded. Steele Biotechnology's stock soared as investors rewarded transparency and courage. But the real battle was personal. You're dating your boss, Summer said one morning at breakfast, not a question but a statement of observed fact. Jackson had been dreading this conversation. How do you feel about that? She considered it seriously. She makes you smile more. And she comes to my games even when she's busy. So I guess it's okay. Just okay? Well, I was hoping for someone who liked soccer more. But she's learning. Ariana officially met Summer as more than just Jackson's employer at a company picnic. She was nervous, which Summer found hilarious. You run a giant company, Summer pointed out, but you're scared of a 9-year-old. You're intimidating, Ariana replied seriously. You're smart and observant, and your opinion matters to your dad. That makes you the most important person I need to impress. Summer studied her for a moment. Do you really like him, or is this a boss thing? I really like him. He's brave and honest and kind. And he raised an incredible daughter, which tells me everything I need to know about who he is. Okay, but if you hurt him, I know where you work. Ariana laughed. Fair enough. The relationship wasn't easy. Media scrutiny intensified. Tabloids ran stories about the billionaire and her helicopter pilot. Some portrayed it as a fairy tale. Others suggested impropriety. Jackson's ex-wife even appeared briefly, trying to claim she deserved credit for Summer's upbringing, until Jackson's lawyer shut that down efficiently. Through it all, they built something real. Dinner as a makeshift family. Ariana teaching Summer about science while Jackson cooked. Weekend trips where they could be normal people instead of public figures. Slowly, carefully, they became something more than 2 people thrown together by crisis. 6 months after the press conference, Nathan Preston reached out. He was serving reduced prison time in exchange for testimony against the companies that had recruited him. His message was simple: "Thank you for giving me a path to redemption instead of just revenge." Dr. Wolf had started a non-profit focused on pharmaceutical safety and transparency. She wanted Ariana to serve on the board. Another piece of something broken being rebuilt. "We should get married," Ariana said one evening, as casually as if she was suggesting takeout. Jackson nearly dropped his coffee. "What? I love you. You love me. Summer tolerates me." The math seems simple. That's possibly the least romantic proposal in history. I'm better with statistics than romance. But I mean it, Jackson. I want this. Want us. Want to build something permanent with you and Summer. He looked at this woman who'd entered his life through chaos and stayed through everything that followed. "We should probably ask Summer first." They did. Summer's response was characteristically pragmatic. "Does this mean I get to be in a wedding?" "If you want to be," Ariana said. "Can I wear sneakers with my dress?" "Absolutely not," Jackson and Ariana said simultaneously, then laughed at the synchronization. "Fine," Summer sighed. "But I want cake. Really good cake." "Deal," Ariana said. They married 6 months later in a small ceremony that mixed Ariana's corporate world with Jackson's grounded reality. Summer served as the entire wedding party, wearing a dress with sneakers hidden underneath because some battles weren't worth fighting. 5 years later, Jackson stood in the same helipad where everything had changed, watching his wife address a crowd of aviation students. Summer, now 14, and showing no interest in either helicopters or pharmaceuticals, sat beside him, rolling her eyes affectionately at her stepmom's enthusiasm. "She really loves talking about safety protocols," Summer muttered. "Your mom's passionate about keeping people alive. It's kind of her thing." "Our mom," Summer corrected. "You keep forgetting the adoption papers." He smiled. The adoption had been Summer's idea, presented with characteristic directness on her 13th birthday. "If we're a family, let's make it official." Ariana had cried through the entire ceremony. Steele Biotechnologies had become the industry standard for ethical pharmaceutical development. 3 major drugs had received FDA approval, saving countless lives. The Butterfly Pharmaceuticals model had been adopted by other companies. Nathan Preston, fully rehabilitated, now worked in their safety division, using his experience to prevent others from making his mistakes. "Dad," Summer said quietly, "do you ever think about that day? The hijacking?" "Sometimes." "Why?" "Because that's when everything changed. When our life became this instead of what it was. Do you wish it hadn't happened?" She thought about it seriously. "No. I miss our old apartment sometimes. It was smaller, but it was ours. But this is good too. Different, but good." Ariana finished her speech and made her way over, still moving with purpose, but softer now, more settled. She'd learned to delegate, to trust, to accept that she didn't have to save the world single-handedly. "How was I?" she asked. "Passionate and slightly nerdy," Summer said. "So, very you. I'll take it." Ariana slipped her hand into Jackson's. "Ready to go home?" Home was a house in the suburbs, carefully chosen for its proximity to Summer's high school and its very ordinary, very normal neighborhood. They'd kept the corporate housing for when work demanded it, but this was where they lived, where they were just a family. As they drove through Seattle, Jackson thought about the man he'd been 5 years ago. Desperate, struggling, breaking promises to his daughter while trying to keep them afloat. That man would never have imagined this life. "What are you thinking about?" Ariana asked. "How one flight changed everything. Technically, one hijacking. Let's not get technical." She laughed, and Summer groaned from the back seat about parents being embarrassing. And it was perfectly, wonderfully normal. That night, after Summer was asleep, and they sat on their back deck watching stars that city lights couldn't quite hide, Ariana said, "I got a call today from a reporter writing a book about pharmaceutical industry reform. They want to interview us about how it all started." "What did you tell them?" That sometimes crisis brings people together who need each other. That sometimes the right person shows up at exactly the right moment, even if that moment is terrifying. She paused. That heroes don't wear capes or uniforms. Sometimes they're just people who refuse to look away when something's wrong. Jackson pulled her closer. You're talking about yourself, right? I'm talking about us. Both of us. All three of us. Really. Summer's braver than either of us. In the distance, they could hear a helicopter passing overhead, its navigation lights blinking in the darkness. Jackson tracked it automatically, old habits never quite fading. But he didn't feel the pull anymore. Didn't miss the uncertainty of charter flying, or the constant scramble for the next job. He'd found something better. Not perfect. Nothing ever was. But real, and solid, and built on more than just crisis and circumstance. Do you think, Ariana said softly, that if it hadn't been for the hijacking, we would have found each other anyway? I don't know. Maybe in some other life, some other way. But I'm glad it was this life, this way. Even though it was terrifying? Especially because it was terrifying, because it showed us who we really were when everything else was stripped away. They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd survived chaos and built something lasting from the wreckage. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles in the ongoing fight for ethical medicine and corporate responsibility. But tonight, they were just a family. Ordinary and extraordinary in equal measure. Inside, Summer's light clicked on. Through the window, they could see her at her desk, probably working on the science project she'd been obsessing over. Ariana's influence showing in Summer's growing interest in research, even if it was currently focused on soccer performance optimization, rather than pharmaceuticals. She's going to change the world, Jackson said. She already has, Ariana replied. She changed ours. And in the end, maybe that was what mattered most. Not the billions of dollars, or the lives saved by revolutionary drugs, or the industry reforms that bore Ariana's name, but the small transformations. The single father who learned he could be more than just a survivor. The billionaire who discovered that vulnerability wasn't weakness. The young girl who got to grow up seeing what partnership and purpose looked like. Heroes don't wear capes. They don't always make headlines or change entire industries. Sometimes they just keep showing up, day after day, doing the right thing even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Sometimes they're just exhausted single dads who happen to be in exactly the right place, at exactly the right moment. And sometimes, that's enough to change everything. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.